Welcome to the show, Israel. People have been asking to have Dave Wemhoff come back on, and Dave is here tonight. Dave, can you start out? There is so much happening right now, and everything's coming together. I think there's a lot of people that want to kind of see your input.
I think so, Peter, and I appreciate you having me on. We've been trying to get me on here for a while. There's a lot of things that's been happening, but I want to go to something that you said.
Okay.
Let's talk about this, okay?
Hold me accountable.
I'm going to hold you accountable. You said we can conclude the American people are pretty worthless. What do you mean by that?
I think I was referring to probably like George Floyd. In other words, the evidence was so obviously clear that he was had a double dose of fentanyl. It was so obviously clear that he had done everything that we know we'd done right from the beginning. Okay.
So George Floyd was actually in an altercation with the police. It was like 9 very violent minutes as the police were trying to take control of the situation, right? Before the experienced officer, Chauvin, came up and took control of the situation.
Right, and one of the reasons I said they're worthless, and of course I just said this in a conversation.
Right, it was just a conversation.
Just a conversation. It's not like I was saying, but I'm accountable to every idle word, like Jesus said.
But you have a thesis or a hypothesis that we've talked about, and that is that in America, the father does not rule his home.
Right. The key to any nation, in fact, I was reading your article that a nation is an extended family.
That's right. It is an extended family.
Okay. Which is the classic, because the word nation comes from the Greek word ethnos, and an ethnicity ultimately traces itself back not to a tadpole, like evolution might say, but it traces itself back to some man closer to Noah. Noah was really the last, one of his sons. And the nations in Europe trace themselves back to some offspring of one of Noah's sons. And
usually they trace it back to the man.
It's a patriarchy. Okay?
But you have an interesting view on patriarchy. We've talked about this, and I think it's an interesting hypothesis. And if you have put this out before, I apologize to the viewers. But I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I don't follow anybody on Twitter, on YouTube. I follow a couple of news people, and that's about it. But you've got an interesting hypothesis. So what you're saying that the father has got to do 2 things. He's got to teach his sons and his children the law of God, right?
Huge responsibility.
It is huge, and it is in the catechism. It's right there in the catechism. And then secondly, he's got to be the head of the household. The father's the head of the household. Mm-hmm. That's right, and that is biblical. That's in the Bible, right?
Yeah, because the book of Sirach, which is in the original King James in the Apocrypha.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's in the original King James in the Apocrypha section. But the book of Sirach says, chapter 49, that Adam is to be honored above all. Okay, so only 2 people are called the Son of God, Adam and Jesus Christ. Okay. We're adopted sons of God as a Christian. They are literally the sons of God. Adam was created out of the dust of the ground from God. Jesus was of course, God, but in his manhood, he began his manhood in the womb of Mary, and God was his,
So the head of the family, the head of the church, is a male. It's a man. It's a man.
Yeah.
And so the man has control in the family. What that means is the man makes the ultimate decisions, right? Is that right?
Right, but you have to base it in something really solid. You can't
Which is the law of God.
Well, you trace it back when God told Adam. He said, Adam and Eve, increase and multiply. That was where you have the sacrament of marriage. But then in the same breath, he says, take dominion.
Take dominion.
That's where you get government, okay? Government is somebody who's a governor, somebody who has authority. Okay, so when the father says, I want you guys to mow the lawn,
Right.
okay, I want you, Joe, I want you to mow the back lawn, and Billy, I
Okay.
want you to mow the front lawn.
Right. Right.
They have to do it.
Okay, they have to do it.
Even more so than if they were in the military. In the military, you're military, okay? When you tell somebody to do something, they better do it, at least in the old days.
Well, yeah, when you tell somebody to do something, they got to do it. So the man is in charge of the family, is in charge of teaching. Okay, so what we have, what you have remarked upon in the past is there are a lot of families without that, either that male presence or that male dominion, right?
Yeah.
And what are the results of that? What happens when that happens?
Well, I like I said before on the show, I did a show on this subject, 20 years ago. And I got a letter in the mail from a lady telling me her whole history related to, that her dad was henpecked. Well, that was back when you didn't get many letters. There was no comments, public access. You didn't get any feedback hardly. So I didn't, I read the letter and forgot it. Then I was taking some of the youth at church. I would hang out with them in the afternoon, okay? Go to church, and then I would, basically giving them the Word of God during the afternoon. Well, we stopped at a Dunham Sports there in Town and Country. Well, that's where the lady worked.
Okay.
So the lady comes up to me and explains what she wrote in that letter right to my face.
That must have been a powerful moment.
Yeah, because I'm in my 40s, she's in her 60s, and she was explaining to me that she had a lot of siblings, and they were all messed up.
Because there wasn't a strong father figure.
She said it was precisely because he was henpecked. She believed that was the reason.
Okay. So without a strong father figure, then you have a lot of messed up people in society.
Well, I don't like to use the word strong. I like to use the word godly. What the world thinks is strong. See, if you say the word strong, then the guy goes, well, I need to be strong. Well, don't be misled. You need to be godly.
Well, that's where a lot of people think get lost, because if you take a look at the catechism, after our discussion, I looked at it, I said, where does it talk about the relations between men and women? And of course it doesn't. It starts out in one part and it says, women were to be the helpmate of man, and it quotes right from the scriptures, I think in Genesis. And then in the very next paragraph, it talks about, well, men and women, as husband and wife are supposed to be helpmates of each other.
Okay, but the word helpmate is misleading, okay, because generally that word comes from the old King James, which says that she is to be a help meet. Okay, has nothing to do with the word helpmate, but it seems to our mind that it does. So she was created to be a helper, suitable, fitting. Okay. A fitting helper.
Okay.
I picture it like a lawyer has a secretary.
Okay, a fitting help, but that's not how you read the catechism. They talk about there being a partnership between the husband and the wife.
Yeah, well, my theory,
so is that in accordance with your understanding of the Bible?
Totally not. And that's in accordance with your book on John Courtney Murray, saying that the CIA infiltrated the Catholic Church to try to get the church to kind of fall in line with American ideology. Okay.
So are you saying American ideology confuses the roles between women and men in the marriage?
Robert Louis Dabney, who the president of Princeton said was the greatest theologian in the country, if not the world. It was Stonewall Jackson's chief of staff for 6 months.
Okay.
Dabney summarized that the Yankee ideology at its most important point as the destruction of marriage by making the husband and wife equal. The Yankee ideology aimed to make that relationship one of equality.
Okay, makes one of equality. Well, because the Catechism mentions equality of persons.
Well, see, that's what's happening. See, everything is trying to get it to fit.
So it sounds like there's a lot of confusion in people's minds. You got to know who's in the corner office. You got to know who's in charge, right? The buck's got to stop there. They may be a quiet person, they may be a real he-man, but you know what? That's where the buck's got to stop. So in a lot of people's minds, who's in charge?
Well, the father, if you had a father in charge, then that would solve the problem immediately, because he wouldn't allow his daughter to marry anybody. No, he would make sure his daughter married in the faith.
Okay.
In the old days, a Catholic had to marry a Catholic, and a Lutheran,
That was
a
the old
Lutheran.
days now.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to nail that down. But I will nail down that a father has a duty to make sure his daughter will marry somebody that knows how to rule the home well.
So what was the name of the guy who died in Minneapolis? What was his name? George Floyd. Oh my gosh, I forgot George Floyd's name. Don't tell anybody. So I forgot George Floyd's name. So George Floyd, what kind of household did he come from?
Well, I don't know his background. I mean, I just know that we were forced, 99% of Americans parroted or went along with that policeman killed him.
So how does that deal with the
there's-
weak father in the home? Or confusion between the father, the role of father and mother, because now you got confused roles of father and mother in the American home, and so you don't know who's female, who's male, who's masculine, who's feminine, and so that leads to all sorts of gayness too, right?
Well, put it this way.
How does
put
that
it this
play
way? The government. You get the word governor from government.
Right.
Okay. The husband, the father is the governor.
Right.
Okay. And he is the and if he's governing well, the proof will be in the children, because they will learn how to self-govern.
So you're saying the government of the United States is governing poorly, and so we have all these problems with George Floyd and what was his name, Blake, up in Kenosha.
I would say this, that the primary task of government is to be doing all they can to have the man in the home govern well. Because if the government succeeds at getting the men to govern well,
Okay.
that's 90%.
Does the American system do that?
Just the opposite.
It
aims to undermine.
Is that a moral system then? If it undermines the father in the home,
It's completely immoral at the most important point.
and so that's why we have the disorder now with George Floyd and with Blake and all
George
that.
Floyd is a model of somebody that completely can't govern himself. I mean, he's on fentanyl, he's on cannabis, he's on meth, he's COVID-19, and apparently the girl said he was drunk. This is not and he's stealing. He stole the cigarettes, counterfeit. He's not governing himself well. Why? I don't know. Did he have a father in the home? If he came from a good home, that could go a long way to him governing himself well, or governing himself. He's showing that he can't govern himself.
So a man's got to control himself. He's got to control his appetites. What about Blake? What do we know about Blake, the guy who was shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, your home country?
He's showing himself not to have governed himself well.
He was charged with some sex offenses, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, and so did Floyd. So these guys, if you look at his father is quoting the Quran. This father is completely overweight. Now the mom actually looked very Christian. Okay.
Of Blake's mom.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, she looked very.
But
she looked like a godly
house?
Christian. Probably what happens is that the dad was so bad that's why they divorced.
Oh, I see. So he comes from a
I got
broken
the
home.
impression they were divorced.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
So he came from possibly a broken home.
Right.
So Blake was charged on July 6th with a number of felonies to include, I think, sexual battery. He had, accordingly to the reports, he had broken into his ex-wife or his future ex-wife's apartment and had sex with her or did a sexual act with her, and then got the keys, got some money, took some money, was going out to the car. Police were called. They said, "Stop what you're doing." They tased him twice. He kept moving, and he had a knife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So then the police shot him. They didn't kill him, but they shot him.
Well, you would think he would have died from seven bullets. I'm not trying to defend. Maybe it's very possible that maybe the policeman overreacted. But once you know all the information and their training, it's very possible he didn't.
I mean, have you ever been tased? I mean, a taser knocks you out.
He was tased twice.
And he was tased twice.
So he could have been on drugs.
It was the same with Rodney King. That guy was tased at least once, maybe twice.
He was?
Yeah. And they just keep coming. Well, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, well,
Especially when they got a knife.
you're a lawyer. I mean, of course, I was the chaplain in the jail, but I don't know the exact description of what the police are supposed to be doing, and I don't know their training. But all I would probably look for is, were they within their training? And they have a full right, I'm not saying morally, but they have a full right legally to operate within their training. And if somebody goes for a knife and the training says you can shoot them, case closed. I don't know what the training says.
Well, I don't know either. I don't know if those officers have been charged either. But anyways, after that happened, that got on national TV too, didn't it? There were photographs and movies and video clips of that whole thing too. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that all ran, and then what happened? Kenosha blew up. You've been to Kenosha.
Oh, I go through it all the time. And Kenosha is where you got Park University. There's a couple universities there. They have a lot of stuff that goes on in Kenosha. Those towns along the coast going all the way up. I mean, I had friends from Port Washington, Sheboygan, Manitowoc. Kenosha is still, those are very upscale towns. Okay.
And the photos of Kenosha show it's just burnt out now, just burnt down.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Justin Blake is not from there. I think he's from North Carolina, So they come into the town and they're acting in ways that are totally outside the norm.
Blake is from out of town.
Yeah, he's not from Kenosha. And I don't know how long he's been there, but I'd be concerned about, first of all, I'm interested in how his mom feels, because she seems to come from a Christian point of view. And I'd be interested in the girl that called in, for help. Okay, she called the policeman for help.
Police. Right.
Because apparently this guy was
He
sinning.
assaulted her. Yeah.
Yeah, he's sinning against her greatly.
Yeah. Right. No, it was terrible what they described in the police papers.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So she's basically saying, "Can you rescue me from this guy?"
Right.
Okay.
So the police came to rescue her.
They come to rescue her. They tase him twice. It doesn't seem to affect him. So this guy is really hyped up.
Something going on there.
Okay.
That's right.
Now, I guess, it has to be. Wisconsin's very precise. Okay.
Right.
Wisconsin's going to go by the law. I mean, I'm telling you from my understanding. That's how we were.
Well, yeah, that's where you're from. That's your nationality.
And if the cops broke the law, because as the law says they can only do such and such, and if they broke it, the law, and then Wisconsin says, then nail them. Okay. But if the other guy broke the law, and the policemen were within their training, and the training I'm assuming is constitutional,
right,
then the criminal gets it.
Well, but then there was this huge riot, and the city's been burnt down. It's a shell of a town now, and you had thousands of people marching. There were 175 arrested, 102 were from out of town. So what happened? Where did all these? What's going on?
Well, what's going to happen here?
Why did that happen?
I have I'm from Wisconsin, and I have a lot of friends from Wisconsin.
Wisconsinites should treat each other right?
Well, you should have a bond in your state, I suppose. But generally, what Wisconsin people will do here, they had a Democratic mayor, a Democratic governor, and if they failed to protect those homes because of liberal Democratic policies, the Wisconsin people will retaliate against them. Okay? They will be furious at them.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably
vote them out of office.
Absolutely. They're done.
Right.
Okay? Because they failed in their primary responsibility, and that's to do all within reason to protect the
property
citizens
and people.
And if it was their liberal way of thinking that is why they didn't protect them, then I'm telling you, Wisconsin people usually react.
Isn't that what men do? They protect people and property.
Yeah, but if you get effeminate, then
you don't do it. Right. So men protect people and property, and even the Catechism talks about the right of self-defense of yourself and others. The love of self is primary. The Catechism says that. So you have the right to defend yourself, right? I mean, that's what you got.
I grew up, my mom, I'm to be a soldier, literally, My dad, my uncles, they're all soldiers. There's under any normal circumstance, I'm going to be one.
You got to protect
my
people,
mom
right?
always reminded me I'm going to be one. And then when you're confirmed in the church, now you're a soldier for Christ. So you're a soldier either way. There's no way around it. Okay, so a soldier does what? A soldier is quick to defend those who need to be defended. He's fighting on behalf of a defense, right?
Right, to defend people.
Yeah.
So how did Joey Rosenbaum die? Who shot Joey Rosenbaum? Who killed Joey Rosenbaum?
Okay, so this is like the second or third night in Kenosha?
It's the night of August 26, 2020.
Right, and was he from Wisconsin, or where's he from?
Well, this is a good point. He actually has a criminal history, or he had. He's now deceased. Hence the title, Who Killed Joey Rosenbaum? So he's deceased, and he had done hard time, according to the reports I read, in Arizona for being a sex offender.
In prison?
He did hard time in prison, in Arizona prison, for being a sex offender. And apparently the night of August 26th was the night that there was a big riot going on, and he was out taunting people. They got him on video.
I saw. He's all hyped up.
Oh, he's all hyped up. He's yelling and shouting at people. And then at some point he takes off running after this kid called Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse from where? Antioch, Illinois.
Antioch, I know,
You know Antioch?
Yep.
And actually the reports show that Kyle Rittenhouse, the day before, on August 25th, was up in Kenosha, helping out as a lifeguard, scraping graffiti off of high school. And he took a first aid kit the night of the 26th, and somebody gave him a rifle, and he was asked to defend some property because nobody was defending the property. The police had run away, like they have in so many other cities. They're gone. They just run away now. When the BLM shows up, they just run away. That's it. So, and that's for a lot of reasons. One, I think, is because of your thesis that, there's just a lack of masculinity with a lot of these people. Another one is because you have a real failure of the Democratic leadership. And another thing is because everybody knows the rich and powerful are behind BLM. Soros and the Davos crowd and, Nadella and Cook and Zuckerberg and Bezos and all these guys, they're behind BLM. So when BLM shows up, you better run away. That's the message.
Well, also, because you've written a lot on that, the love of money is the root of all evil, and money and the rich have a hard time getting into the kingdom. Okay, but it also is a feminizing. Okay?
It is a feminizing.
Money, prosperity tends to effeminate, like Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah. That was the prosperous, as Lot was looking out. That was the prosperous place.
Very prosperous, wasn't it? And yet they were very effeminate.
Right. So when you have all this wealth, it doesn't lead to more holiness and masculinity.
No. It effeminizes you. Mm-hmm. It's a millstone around your neck. Christ spoke about that.
So then if you're raised in a rich home, the father could be effeminate, more effeminate.
That's right.
And then that would lead to being henpecked down the road.
Exactly. Makes perfect sense. Now, so what we've got then is we got the night of the fires. Okay, we got the night of the fires. The BLM's on the streets. This kid, Kyle, he's 17 years old. He's with these other guys defending this car dealership and other property. Somehow he gets separated from them. And there's a reporter running behind Joey, who's running after Kyle.
And he's after him because I think I saw they put a fire inside a big garbage bin. And somebody, it could have been Kyle, took the fire extinguisher and put it out.
And tried to put it out, yeah.
And he had done other stuff. He was defending they kind of knew who he was.
They knew who he was.
He was defending the building.
And so they went after him.
He might have put out the fire. So this guy's an enemy to them.
He's an enemy to them. He's a white kid, and he conducted himself well. So he's an enemy to the BLM. He's an enemy to the rich.
He doesn't look like them either. I mean, he looks probably like a...
He looks like an everyday Joe.
Or like-
He's a decent
like-
kid. His lawyer in
Yes.
the Wall Street Journal, and I'm paraphrasing now, his lawyer in the Wall Street Journal said, this kid is doing what every American man should be doing, which is defending property and lives of other people. Now, that's a paraphrase.
Right, and
that would be in my
and the
article.
kid didn't just do it accidentally. The kid...
He did it on purpose. He exposed
He
himself
thought
to
the thing
danger.
through on every angle, and that's why he did what he did.
That's right. And he even helped some of the wounded protesters with the first aid kit. Okay?
Well, he went to help Rosenbaum after he shot him, until they chased him away.
There you go.
That's what I read.
Now, I've got a good friend of mine who studied this, okay? He was former military officer. He's retired, was high up in the military. He sent an email out, and he said, this is his account. And he said, can somebody help with the math here? All of us, well, at least most of us, watched Joseph Rosenbaum chase Kyle Rittenhouse. Trailing directly behind both of them was a reporter identified as Richard McGinnis of the Daily Caller, who had interviewed Rittenhouse earlier in the evening. McGinnis said once Rittenhouse got to the black car in the parking lot, it was essentially cornered, Rittenhouse turned to face Rosenbaum. Rittenhouse had the gun raised but pointed downward, so it was pointed down. Rittenhouse then brought the gun up, stepped back, and apparently fired 3 shots in rapid succession, according to McGinnis. 3 shots. Okay. Dr. P. Douglas Kelly at the Milwaukee Medical Examiner's Office performed the autopsy on Joey. The doctor determined that Rosenbaum suffered 1 gunshot to the groin that fractured his pelvis, another to the back, which perforated his right lung and liver, 1 to the left hand, a superficial gunshot wound to the lateral left thigh, and a graze wound to the right side of his forehead. So, Rosenbaum had 5 gunshot wounds. I will stipulate, my friend says, that the bullet that caused the gunshot wound to Joe's left hand could have then passed through Joey's hand. It was the same bullet that wound up as the bullet that hit either his groin or thigh. But I would be confident that the autopsy report would have stated it there had been pieces of hand in the groin or the thigh. But that leaves at a minimum 1 extra wound. While 4 of the wounds were to the front of Joey, or could reasonably be attributed to a firearm to the front of Joey, where did the wound to his back come from?
Somebody had, I think I read he had a pistol. Somebody with a pistol shot him.
He shot with a pistol, is what I've read,
Yeah.
from behind. Mm-hmm. So Rittenhouse didn't kill him.
Well, if you shoot somebody, I know I deer hunt, if you shoot a deer in the pelvis area, they're going to die.
Well,
But maybe not, they're going to die.
right away. But
Right. So what immediately killed him, the pelvis shot, we don't know exactly, right? But it's not going to kill him like it did.
people have survived pelvis shots. General Hancock was shot in the pelvis.
Well, what's his name in the Congress? Scalise?
Scalise, he was shot in the pelvis, right?
Right, but
he survived it.
Yeah, but it wasn't easy to survive.
It wasn't easy. No, it wasn't
No.
easy. But Hancock was shot, and those things were 45 caliber rounds. And they shot him right in the pelvis, right at Gettysburg. He fell off his horse. And so, but he lived. He
He was a Federal?
He was a Union. I know he's a Union soldier, but
A Yankee?
he was a Yankee. He was a Yankee from Philadelphia or Pennsylvania somewhere. But anyway, so who shot Joe? So after that, then Kyle gets up and he starts running. He's got to get out of there. Everybody's saying, "Let's kill him, get him, kill him."
Cranium, yeah, I mean, yeah.
And so this kid comes.
They're all
up.
older than him, too.
They're all older than him. This kid comes up, Huber, I think it is, with a skateboard. Well, you can take a guy's head off with a skateboard.
Anthony Huber.
Yeah. So then, Kyle.
Well, he might have hit him. It says he did hit him.
Tried to hit him.
So now he's really...
So this is self-defense. This is a kid self-defense, and now he is the enemy. He is the enemy of the elites, and he has become a hero in the minds of most people because he is a hero.
Well, first of all...
Because he defended property, he defended lives, and he defended himself.
But first of all,
the
elites are not going to have a son like that.
They won't have a son like that, but they also don't want white people to identify with this kid. Because what's going on here is a couple of things. There's a provocation. I've heard this a lot of times. Oh, people are being provoked. That's right. Blacks are being provoked to attack whites. You see all these images on all the national media. of George Floyd, whole 8 minutes shown. See Drudge Report showing now this guy in Rochester with a hood over him. You see the shootings of Blake and other people. Well, this inflames people, okay? So this inflames blacks and Black Lives Matter to do something about that.
Sure, from their perspective, from that limited perspective,
right?
I would, yeah. If you were black, you might be upset.
But there's another side to the media coin here. And the other side to the media coin is to tell white people, don't resist. If you resist, you're a bad person. If you call this anything for what it is, which is something driven from the top of this national and international society, all because they want to destroy ethnicities, as I write in my article, they want to destroy ethnicities because Brexit was huge. George Soros and the international globalists didn't like it. And they don't like Trump because of his international economic approach. So they're going to destroy all the ethnicities. And one of the biggest ethnicity is white U.S. citizens who are Americans. That's a big ethnicity, and they want to destroy that. At the same time, what they want to do is they want to have all these groups fighting among each other. Blacks fighting whites and fighting over a diminishing resource pie. That's what you've got. It's a diminishing resources. Everybody, the attention's off the rich. There were a couple of articles that I just reviewed that came out in May and June that talk about how much money the upper 10% made. There was just, within 3 weeks, they made $282 billion during the coronavirus.
But isn't that, the whole idea of socialism especially, is to bring down the 1%. So
that's it. That's what they want us to believe. But what they do is they socialize the losses, but they privatize the gains. That's what they're doing.
But a lot of people that are on that socialist agenda pushing it, I think a lot of them sincerely believe that the core problem is what you said, is that the 1 or 2%.
Yeah, they're deceived. They think they're going to get more money. They think wealth is going to be distributed fairly. But what John Kenneth Galbraith said, and what has always happened in America, is the concentration of wealth. And I've been saying this for months now. As soon as COVID-19 hit, I said you're going to see a concentration in wealth in this country. And sure enough,
they did have an article in the beginning, the biggest transfer of wealth, and there was
absolutely.
Now, why
they just did? I'm sorry, they just did a story on National Public Radio, which is just rabidly, anti-white. There's just no doubt about it. But they just did a story on September the 1st, and they talked to Karen Petro at the Federal Financial Advisors Group out in New York City, and she's saying everything that they're doing with the Fed in keeping the interest rates down simply serves to hurt the people who save money, but at the same time, it's pumping up the stock market. So that's the 10% of the wealthiest people who own 84% of the stock. They're getting richer.
Yeah,
wealth is being more focused, and at the same time, we're fighting each other between white and blacks, and the government has failed to be a father, as you have accurately pointed out, as the government's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a father. It's supposed to sit there and enforce the father's duties to teach the children and to govern the society, okay, so that we all get along and we're all safe. And the father in this country isn't.
No, but it goes. But there's reasons why the father has been diminished, and his authority has been leaking out. Okay,
right? Because then it helps people get more money if you're smart enough, and you're tough enough, and you're ruthless enough. The Catechism talks about a civil society presupposes that there's goodwill and good faith between people. You think you really have goodwill, good faith, and solidarity in this society with the upper 1%? Not a chance.
But everybody knew that the game in town was...
Everybody wants to be rich.
Well, has there ever been any other definition for success than making money? Have we ever had
that's the primary definition. You're right. I think that's the primary definition in America. But people get elected to political office, but they get elected to political office because they're able to play the little guy while advancing the agenda of the elites. That's just the way it works in America. In order to advance in America, you got to betray your own people. But you got to make it look like, hey, I'm really helping you.
Well, it's kind of a simple formula. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but the first thing anybody wants to know is, Well, how much money do you have to help get elected? Okay, so in other words, well, hold on here. What's money have to do with your ability to get elected? Why should there be a connection? Well,
Because that shows support.
Yeah, I guess it shows support, but let's say it's
Means you're popular. They like you. And in America, you got to be liked if you want to advance.
Well, I think it's in almost all cases that who's ever mayor of a town, who's ever governor of a state, who's ever president, he got there because people with money and power made a Faustian bargain with him.
Sure,
okay?
absolutely.
And said, here's the deal.
Right.
We will get you elected,
Right.
which is what you want,
Right.
as long as you give me or us what we want.
Right.
We want you to do our bidding if you get in.
Right.
Okay? And the guy's going to go, wow, that's all I mean, I can be governor if I do your bidding?
Right.
That's a deal.
Right, but the civil authorities are supposed to act for the common good of all people, not just for the best interests of some people. Now, see, here's what's really clever about this system, and Charles Beard saw it more than 100 years ago. He offered an economic explanation of the U.S. Constitution, and that explanation really hasn't been broken down or destroyed. It's been attacked, but it's still valid because it still holds because it established a common currency, it established a strong central government, and it also it established capital markets, and it established one giant market, okay, with the Interstate Commerce Clause. You need this if you're going to have financial capitalism. You got to have that. If you're going to have commerce, okay, you got to have that. And money is essential to making everything work, okay? So in a modern system, okay? So that stands. So what Charles Beard said, he said, you know, these guys who wrote the Constitution, they didn't do it just for themselves to the exclusion of everyone else. They did it in such a way as to primarily help themselves, but everybody's boat, or almost everybody's other boat, you know, floated too. So this is really important because there's a way, okay? There's a way to control the situation by giving people what they want. But you get better, or you get more, or you get prime position. But by doing that, you keep control of people. And that's what the First Amendment is. It is a way to control people, to build on this tyranny and this culture of dissent, while at the same time helping the rich get richer. And if you're good enough to get in, yeah, you can get, like the old Marine Corps saying, if you're good enough to get in, you know, you can get in. And you can go and be rich too. But you got to be really good. And you got to provide something. And you got to really check religion and everything else at the door. But that's what the First Amendment does. The First Amendment lets everybody have their say, free speech, free press.
You know,
well,
when you
guess
talk about
what? The press is run, except for your organization, it's run by the filthy rich. And they're all working in conjunction with the financial capitalists and the intel agencies. That's what my book was about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Murdochs. But when you say First Amendment, you're mainly talking about freedom of speech and freedom of the press? Because there's the right to assemble, you know, and all that.
I'm talking about the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Because the right to assemble, this is what they're saying about the BLM. They're saying 90% of this, I just read it today, 90% of this is just peaceful protest. I sure as hell don't want to be in the 10%, do you? 10% is a pretty big percentage.
So the reason that those businesses weren't protected is because, well, they have a right to the First Amendment rights.
Well, you see crowds going down the middle of the street. Are you intimidated? Yeah. These are the people, right? These are people. We're the authorities. Okay, it's intimidating to see crowds of people assemble. I've been in riots. It's scary. I was in LA when they had the riots in 1991, 1992, and you see these crowds of people marching around. I mean, it's intimidating. So if you can mobilize these crowds like George Soros has with BLM, putting $1 billion plus into their pockets and financing everything, you know, down to the local level, if you can organize these people, well, we're just peacefully protested. But, you know, 1 out of 10 times we burn some places down or you don't give us what they want.
Well, that gets to the other point. It seemed like Trump, way back, it looked like for sure he was going to get reelected, to some, okay?
So my opinion is he's still going to win.
Yeah.
But it's going to be ugly.
But the Democrats are caught between a rock and a hard place, okay? Because if they overplay the BLM, riots, it's going to cause people not to vote for the Democrats, okay?
Right.
Or if they really press the BLM, it's going to scare people. In other words, this is what you're going to get if you vote for Trump. And if you vote for Biden, you'll have peace. So they're intimidating.
Right. This is the unspoken dynamic. You're absolutely correct, Peter. This is the unspoken dynamic. That if you vote for Biden, all these horrors will stop. COVID-19 will magically go away. The BLM will stop burning, looting, shooting, raping. Okay, all that will stop.
Well, it may.
Well, it may for a while, but the organization is still in place and the powerful interests are still there. Okay, but this is the unspoken dynamic that everybody gets. You're absolutely right. Another thing you said that was absolutely correct is that we're seeing these really destructive events in Democrat towns that are in Democrat states, where the governor's a Democrat and where the mayor's a Democrat.
And what would be, I mean, I'm not really for a Republican or Democrat, to tell you the truth, because I don't trust a lot of their foundation. But it could be that the Democratic mayor and governor tend to be more effeminate. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think the Democrat Party, okay, I think the Democrat Party, okay, is basically at the beck and call of the international capitalists. That's what I think. I think they're at that beck and call. And so they're in the George Soros camp. They want to break down the ethnicities. Yeah, right.
So there's international capitalist and national capitalist.
And I think there's national capitalists.
So you're talking about the same thing that happened with Hitler? Hitler was a national socialist.
Yeah, I think
and he was up against international.
I think he was. Yeah, and I think he was put in power by the international guys. But he got German support because he talked about the national side. He helped the country. This is what Steve Bannon, he's now indicted. But this is what Steve Bannon was talking about, is national economics versus international economics. Globalism is international economics. The Americans created it. It's in my book. I talk about it in my book. In 52 and 54, they created it, okay? And then they just ran with it. But what you've got is you've got the Democrats who, for some reason, are attuned to this. They're attuned to advancing this international economic order, this globalism, which is going to just screw everybody.
Well, okay. I mean, we're here in South Bend, Notre Dame.
Right.
Where does Notre Dame stand?
Whatever Notre Dame does, do the opposite. Okay, so if Notre Dame says COVID-19 is serious, that means it isn't. Okay, that's a rule of thumb that is very clear now. So Notre Dame, came down on the side, of course, of Black Lives Matters. That must be wrong, because Notre Dame is in the camp of the international capitalists. There's no doubt about it. They're Americanists, and Americanism at its root is a global system of control. That's how it was created. That's what it's about.
Which is what Pope Pius IX in the 1860s was up against.
That's what he was up against.
That was really an international.
Yeah. It really was. He was up against an international movement. The Americans picked up steam, and by World War II, they were going global, man. All you had to do is read the Four Freedoms speech and read Henry Luce's speech. But this is what the First Amendment allows. It puts real power into the hands of these powerful private interests. Oh, and we get to say our piece too, right? We get to have our little show here, right? And write our little magazine or little articles on our website or whatever. And it's like, whoa, everybody feels good. Everybody's kind of placated for a while. Best way to control people is let them have their say. That's what the First Amendment does. They're better to control. Oh, well, you had your freedom of speech. Now shut up and do what we tell you.
Of course, the answer would be a strong local church, a strong local parish. But if the leader of that church, the priest or the minister, has taken in the global perspective, then how is he going to build a strong local parish?
Well, this is what the liberalism or the American experiment is showing. It guts the power of the churches, especially the Catholic Church. It just guts the power. It makes the churches a reflection of society at large, which is determined by the powerful private interests who control the press. And guess what? Freedom of the press includes freedom of expression, which means you have control over Hollywood. They can put out whatever crap they want because of the First Amendment. Okay? And that's how they control the people. Okay, and so what you have in the Catholic Church now is the bishops don't control the flocks. I mean, we don't have to go to church until November 1st, but I dread going back. I dread, because you're going to see the divisions in the people. You're going to see the divisions outside or in here. There's no union. There's no unity within the church anymore. The church bishops and the priests no longer have any control. They have no power because it's been stripped from them, because there's not an established church, not an established religion. And by the way, you got free exercise of religion, which means the government can't do anything to hinder you. And the Catholic confessional state is based on the idea of the divine positive law in every society, even if it's a democratic society or a republic. It's got to form the basis of the public policy. And one of the biggest public policies is the establishment of the Catholic Church and basing all laws on the Catholic religion. All laws on the Catholic religion. So you have no abortion, you have no contraception, you have no gay marriage, you have no economic disparities, and you have a sense of solidarity among people. That's what you're supposed to do. And the Catholic Church leaders at that point have a real check, a real power on the government, and most importantly, on the powerful private interests, the rich guys.
Well, I would say from 1620 till 1770 or whatever, the general consensus of the Protestants, the Puritans, was, the divine positive law, all civil law has to line up with the divine positive law. And if there was a civil law at odds with the divine positive law, that's an illegitimate law.
See, I think that's right. And see, they at least maybe not had the full Catholic religion, but they had something based on the Bible. And that understanding of the Bible persisted, even though the religions in America gradually wore away. One revival after another just wore them down. But what you have shown, I believe, in what you have talked about over the years in our discussions and what I've seen, what you have shown is that here is this group of, we'll call them Christians, that are Americans, okay? And they have this Bible understanding, and they base their societies in large measure on the Bible, especially in the South, but they even broke away from that as time went on, because you had a secular national ideology in the form of the First Amendment, and it even broke them away from whatever roots they had to the Bible. And so this has been the process of America. And these guys knew it, who set it up. They knew it was going to go that way. And it has gone that way.
And now it's come full circle. So now is like you said before, this is an opportune time. Because if people can't listen now, when would they listen? Because now it's come so full circle that, like here locally, some teacher said something about Black Lives Matter, being, something really negative or something. He's an English teacher. And I don't know if he might have just lost his job. Okay.
I heard something about that. I didn't know the details. But I've
talked to other retired teachers that are just appalled because he's an English teacher. He should have the freedom.
Academic freedom, right?
He should have the freedom to talk about this.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But he doesn't.
No.
And I bet you if a teacher at Notre Dame said something, they could be under heat. See, so you, not only do you have a Catholic university, Notre Dame, they can't really challenge Black Lives Matter. Don't forget, Black Lives Matter girls, if I understand it, they were two lesbians from Harvard.
Right.
Notre Dame invited them to speak.
Of course.
Okay, so Catholic theology and BLM philosophy,
they're incompatible.
Totally.
They're incompatible. But here's the church leadership surrendering. And this is what a lot of people can't understand. The church leadership, the priests, the educators, the cardinals, the Pope, okay? They spout error. They go with the wrong way all the time. But that doesn't mean that the Catholic religion is wrong. It just means that the leadership is trying to please somebody, and it's not Christ, and it's not the faithful. Okay?
Would you say BLM is really Americanism on steroids? Because it's from Harvard. Harvard is the Vatican. Is the number one seminary.
Well, I don't know. It's a curious thing. I mean, it's a product of America. And in a way, it is Americanism because once again, Jenkins and Notre Dame just, prostrate themselves. Oh, this is legitimate. And a lot of the Catholic hierarchy does too. They just, it's legitimate. America knows better than us. I mean, Archbishop Laurie just recently wrote some piece trying to explain how Black Lives Matter can fit into Catholic theology. And this is absolutely ridiculous. Black Lives Matter is a weapon, okay? It's a weapon. It's a weapon.
Look at Notre Dame. Hesburgh is out, we wanted to be the Harvard of the Midwest. Okay, well, here's 200 girls, lesbians, and they come and they say, here's the latest.
Well, they're getting $220 million from George Soros and God knows how much else. George Soros is a big-time international financial guy.
Well, they're donating everywhere. Everybody's donating.
Absolutely. Money talks and BS walks is the old saying. And that's what we're seeing, okay? And that's where Notre Dame is just kowtowing to the powers of the day. And everybody knows that BLM is from the highest level. So they're going to go away. They're going to follow them. And that's why you're seeing all the articles coming out saying, why are all these white kids in here? Well, they're all, they know that's the way to go. Well, there are a number of articles saying a lot of these kids are very rich. They come from the good part of town. There's one article after another.
Okay, you're a valedictorian out of high school. Okay.
Boy, that and $1.57 will get.
Well, I'm just saying, okay, here's the point. You obviously worked hard to achieve that. And then you go to Notre Dame. So I'm just saying, what's going on here? What kind of people go to Notre Dame? What do they want?
This goes back to your point. The father should be teaching the children to live in accordance with the law of God. And the law of God is not necessarily to seek riches. But a lot of people go to Notre Dame to seek riches. I'll tell you why I went to Notre Dame. Because I was accepted at Princeton. And I was stupid. I should have gone to Princeton, okay? Yeah. I was really stupid. I went to Notre Dame because I wanted to be a Catholic.
Princeton, I put an application in I went to visit Princeton, way beyond my pay grade. Okay, Princeton is not what I could handle.
What can I tell you? You and I are here now.
Yeah.
It got Notre Dame grads. It got us here at the same place. How about that? So here's the thing. So I went to Notre Dame because of the Catholicism. My parents were good people. They're both dead now. They were good people. They lived the Catholic faith. They did what they were supposed to do. They served their country. They served their fellow man. They suffered, and they lived in accordance with the faith. And Catholicism was important to them. And I saw that. And Notre Dame was the best Catholic school. So I went up there. That's why I went there. I said, Mom, Dad, I want to be a Catholic. I really want to be. So you go up there and you have your faith stripped, world class. But they know that they've got to go along with the rich people. And they know who's calling the shots in society. They know which way the wind is blowing. And that's who they're going to support. So, of course, they're going to wear the mask and they're going to kneel, okay? That's a sign of, the mask is a muzzle, the kneeling is a sign of submission to the powerful private interest, to the rich. That's who that is. That's what that means.
Once you purport to say you're there to teach truth, and you think of St. Francis, somebody gave one of his disciples a gold coin and St. Francis went ballistic. Get that out of here. In other words, money can corrupt. Okay,
yeah, it does corrupt.
And it'll corrupt teaching. Okay,
yeah,
the monasteries were considered like the best place for the faith to flourish because they had the vow of poverty,
right,
the vow of chastity, and the vow of obedience.
That's right.
And once you don't have those type of things there at your institution,
right,
then it.
Katie bar the door. It's going to appropriate you say Katie, a female, because the men won't do it because they're effeminate. You go over to Notre Dame, they're all effeminate because it's money. They're pursuing money and success, worldly goods.
Right. So,
the world is
the real reason parents encourage their children to go to Notre Dame is that it fits their definition of success.
We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
And so, the Christian definition of success is at odds with the American definition.
Absolutely.
But what happens is we've internalized,
Absolutely.
we've taken that definition, and the Christians have internalized that.
Right. I think that's right.
And so when they, how's your son doing?
I think you're absolutely right. We're getting close to the end. I just want to put in a couple blurbs, but I want to say, you've done some really good work. I really do. And I really mean that. And I really think you have done that. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. It's been a while to get back, but I'm glad we're back. But you've done some really good work. You've done some really good things, and you need to keep it up. And I've got a couple articles that are going to be coming out on the American Proposition website. One is going to be a form of a talk I gave a couple weeks ago up in Michigan. It's about the Catholic confessional state and integralism. A lot of people are questioning the system of organization in America, the First Amendment, especially given the riots. But this has been going on now for several years. George Weigel weighed in May of this year, which was 5 months after our talk about the importance of the Catholic confessional state. Weigel weighed in. He attacked the integralists, which means the Catholic confessional state, the supporters of that. And he says, if you support integralism or the Catholic confessional state, you're going to be like the Nazis or the fascists or the communists, and then he goes on and gives you the regular claptrap about how you're supposed to have a lively debate in society, which of course only benefits the powerful private interests when you got the First Amendment in place without an established church and an established religion. Okay, we got that, George, we got that. But anyways, this is getting to be a key issue in people's minds. Is this thing really working? And the answer that is coming down more and more is no, that we're in a moment of opportunity here. We have an opportunity perhaps to go along ethnic lines, to organize along ethnic lines, which is in accordance with the natural law, and thereby look out for the ethnic groups that are involved. Now, BLM is a combination of ethnicity with this crazy ideology of feminism, which is just, what the Americans have always done. They always put on top of something natural. They always put on some ideology, and that carries the day for the ideology. It's brilliant, practical. That's what Americans are. Anyway, you can read more about that in my article. I'm doing another article on Kyle Rittenhouse and what the significance of that whole event too. And so that's it. I want to thank you again for having me on. Keep up the good work that you're doing, and the best to the listening audience. Be safe and be aware.
Yeah. Well, like you said before, this is a great, opportune time to share the gospel. Really, to share truth.
Yeah, share truth.
Because there's only one answer to this. I mean, Christianity is the answer. And
yeah, it is.
And so now's not a time to be quiet and hiding in your room. So this is an encouragement for people to get out and share the Christian faith, share the good news of Jesus Christ. And I'm glad, Dave, you can come back on. And your 2 articles are coming out in
the next few days.
The American Proposition.
TheAmericanProposition.com.
Oh, okay. So this is Peter Helland and David Wemhoff from the show Israel.